Supplementary questions have been asked. Can we now move to the next question? We now come to the fourth oral question. Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing with my name on the order paper.
My Lords, on Tuesday, my honourable friend, the Universities Minister, and I laid written statements confirming that following the review of when all higher education students could return to in-person teaching, remaining students on non-practical courses should return to in-person teaching alongside Step 3 of the roadmap out of lockdown no earlier than the 17th of May. Alongside this, the guidance document for students returning to or starting higher education was updated and published.
My Lords, I am grateful to the Government for updating the guidance shortly after this question was tabled, and I am, of course, conscious of the need for sensible restraint in emerging from lockdown. But by the 17th of May, many summer terms will be so far advanced it will be almost not worthwhile in many cases restarting physical teaching. And for many students, it will be the autumn, I suspect, before they get back to where they ought to be. It seems to me that university students have been handed yet again the shortest of short straws and are bearing a disproportionate part of the national burden. Would my noble friend think again?
Well, of course, we recognise the difficulties and disruption which a return in line with Step 3 may cause to students. It does, however, allow them to receive some extra in-person teaching and assessment, to engage with extracurricular activities, take part in face-to-face careers support, to visit specialist libraries and so on, as well as to see their peers and boost their mental health. Students are keen to get back to campus, and universities are keen to have them back. We want to enable this as soon as the public health situation allows.
Royal of Blaisdon.
My Lords, I entirely agree with the noble Lord Moylan. I think that they have been shortchanged students. They are anxious, they're angry, they feel let down, and they don't understand why they can't return to university when schools, shops, gyms and hairdressers are open. I don't understand that either. It is having a detrimental effect on their mental health, their well-being, as well as on their studies. And the appalling delay in the guidance has made the situation worse. How did the government reach the decision to delay the return of students until the 17th of May? And have they assessed the current and long-term impact on the mental health and well-being of students? And have they considered the impact on universities, which play such a vital role in the economy of our country, and which have made the most enormous efforts to put in place all of the requisite COVID-safe measures for in-person teaching, libraries, accommodation and other facilities? I remind noble Lords of my interest as Principal of Somerville College, Oxford.
My Lords, of course, we understand the frustration students may feel, particularly as things are opening up with Step 2, but many of the things which are opening are taking place outside or don't involve the formation of new households, which a return to university would do. Inside, the risks of transmission increase, and the decision we've taken is in line with our cautious approach to the roadmap out of lockdown. At the heart of our decision was public health, but also student well-being, as the noble Baroness mentions. The last thing that any of us wants is for students to have to self-isolate repeatedly, as some had to previously. That would not only have been damaging to their mental health and well-being, but would have put at risk the ability of some students studying creative and practical subjects to graduate.
Anna Smith of Newham.
My Lords, there is cross-party support, I think, for Lord Moylan and Baroness Royal. From the Liberal Democrat benches, I would reinforce everything they have said. I declare my interest as an academic at Cambridge University. I note that this is guidance. Why on earth should universities and students listen to guidance if it isn't law, particularly if it goes against the interests of students?
Well, as I say, the government recognises how difficult the situation is for students, but the roadmap is designed to maintain a cautious approach to the easing of restrictions so that we can maintain progress and not have to go back on them. The guidance that we've made available is in the best interests of students and the wider community, and we urge everybody to adhere to it.
My Lords, I draw the House's attention to my register of interest. I'd like to start by congratulating the government for the student hardship fund, including the additional 15 million that has recently been made available. This has provided a necessary lifeline for many students. However, in relation to students returning to university, I am with noble lords that have already spoken. And what assurance can my noble friend give that in the event of a potential future lockdown, which has already now been spoken about, the education of university students, many of whom have already lost at least a year's worth of face-to-face teaching, will be prioritised in ways that they have not been over the last year?
Well, I thank my noble friend for her welcome for the further £15 million of student hardship funding which we announced this week. That's on top of the £70 million which we had already provided, and the £256 million which providers are able to use during this academic year. As I say, our cautious approach is designed to ensure that this step out of lockdown can be irreversible and avoid the situation which my noble friend outlines.
I remind the House of my interests as set out in the register. The ONS Student Insight Survey revealed almost 2/3 of students have experienced a decline in mental health over this academic year, brought about in part by the uncertainty, anxiety and isolation, which is of course exacerbated by this further decision. Will government commit to providing additional funding for university mental health services, given the increasingly high demand they will face both now and over the coming year?
Yes, we've worked with the Office for Students to provide student space, which has been funded by up to £3 million by the OFS to support students with mental health and well-being. Furthermore, we've asked the OFS to allocate £15 million towards student mental health this year through the proposed reforms to strategic priorities grant funding.
Lord Bassam of Brighton.
My Lords, university students feel forgotten in the government's plans for leaving lockdown. So what discussions has the government had with university leaders and student representatives regarding the date for return to in-person teaching? Given that by mid-May many universities will have finished their teaching year, does the noble Lord the Minister accept that the reality is that this decision means many universities and courses will effectively stay online until the autumn? And what impact will this have on students who've been paying through the nose, frankly, to study at campuses they've not been able to access since Christmas?
The students are most certainly not forgotten. My honourable friend, the Universities Minister, engages directly with students and representatives of students through the various groups that she set up, including ones focusing on mental health. And the Office for Students is also conducting some polling of students so that their views can be fed in to decision-making. That, alongside with the scientific advice, is what has led us to the decision we've taken this week.
Lord Addington.
My Lords, would the Minister agree that what is coming out in this question time and in the news is the fact that students don't seem to know what the situation is? They don't know if they're going to get a reduction on fees. They don't know if they're going to get some money back on accommodation, especially taken through a university. Would the government at least publish something that is a guideline to what the sort of behaviour they think is proper? And if it isn't the government itself, the Office of Students will be a very good body to take this on.
Well, my Lords, as I say, we have updated the guidance to students with advice on returning to universities this week. And as was announced in February, students and HE providers will be given a week's notice of any further easing of restrictions as it affects them. This is, of course, a changing situation with the pandemic. We understand the frustrations people face, but we're grateful to them for their forbearance.
Anfield.
My Lord, surveys suggest that over a fifth of university students say that they feel they would need, and I believe many are being offered, extra teaching over the summer in order to catch up on lessons and tutorials and classes that they may have fallen behind on over the course of the year. Will the government provide additional financial support for those students that may need to study beyond the normal academic year?
Well, that decisions such as that are for universities as autonomous institutions to decide what they wish to do in line with the guidance that we've set out to them this week.
Baroness Prasher.
My Lords, would the Noble Lord the Minister agree that the uncertainties of lockdown and this incomprehensible delay is having a negative impact on international students and on the reputation of the UK as a place to come and study? And what impact does he think this would have on the intake for 2021 and 22?
Well, I think students around the world will have seen how UK universities have reacted admirably to the challenges posed by the pandemic, designing and delivering high-quality online learning and offering exceptional well-being and mental health support. The UK was one of the first countries to introduce immigration flexibility for students, and our new post-study work route, the graduate route, will launch on the 1st of July, further encouraging international students to choose to come and study in the UK.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed.